we have a cinematic from the Heart of the Swarm trailer, and this is where Zeratul and Kerrigan fight. And I really wanted to take some time to show how I went about making a Zergling sound effect. We'll start with the atmosphere, and then we'll go to Kerrigan's suit, and then we'll finish off with the Zergling. So here in the atmosphere, I have 3 logic loops. What I chose to do was I used the cave water droplets and I tuned it down 25 steps, added a little bit of EQ and some reverb. Now this is 100% wet reverb, gives it more of a damp feeling. And then I sent it to the master overall reverb that also has the Zergling sound effect and Kerrigan's suit in it. So let's go ahead and listen to that just by itself. Just a little bit of atmosphere here. This is another logic loop here. This sounds very Starcraft 1 sound effect wise, so I felt it fit really good. And as you can see, I just dragged and dropped it, no shame here. I wanted that tail to go on a little bit longer, so what I ended up doing was stretching it. Now if you hold Option and you get this little arrow, you can stretch things into 1 inch of their life, which I like doing a lot. And if you made a mistake there, you can just hit Command Z and it'll go back to its original stretch. Down here, I ended up chopping off the head that I stretched out and just used the rest of the tail. A little bit of EQ and a little bit of individual reverb here. I actually used the exact same reverb that I used on the cave droplets. We get this really cool, almost Atmo background sound. And together, they sound like this. Now, on a little side tangent here, like I said, I really like stretching things and seeing what comes about them being so stretched out. But another thing you can do as well is you could also transpose it, right? So let's just go crazy up here. Let's go up 30. That was cool, and I didn't even know that was going to happen. Creativity is about trying things, and that's a majority of my career has been just trying different things and seeing if it worked. If it did, it did. If it didn't, well, maybe it will work somewhere else. Kerrigan has this suit that lights up. I think it's really cool, but definitely could have used a benefit from a sound. And even in the original cinematic trailer, there is a sound. And now this specific sound here is nothing more than, what did I use? Ah, yes. I used a plane flyby. Yeah, I used a plane flyby, and I stretched it, tuned it up, made it mono, which kind of actually helped me out because it's got this Doppler effect to it right now. And because of the Doppler effect, it feels like it's going actually up her body. Now, I ended up getting rid of a majority of the information here and just used specifically the top end of it. It would kind of feel weird if that sound was completely heavy. It wouldn't sound like it was part of the suit. It would sound like it was a different sounds. We ended up cutting a bunch of information out of it. And then just a little ensemble right here just to give it a little bit extra juice, if you will. Make it feel a little bit more wet. And then for the Zergling. Now, the Zergling was a lot of fun. I ended up using Rottweilers and a Walrus, and then a couple other tricks. So let me just show you what the Zergling sounds by itself. The first thing I ended up doing was we have a Rottweiler growling. It just works so well. If we go up to its original tuning. It really fits there. So I tuned this down 16, and then what I ended up doing was I added quite a bit of EQ. Because when it was tuned down so low, it had a crazy amount of low end here. So I got rid of a majority of it, gave it a little bit of top end to compensate for the tuning. Your basic saturator, nothing exciting here. A little bit of extra drive on it. The next trick I learned was from the movie Bane. To get Bane to sound a little bit slimy, if you will, they added a ring shifter. All right, just enough. So let me make this crazy for you guys so you guys can hear the difference. Yeah, it just gives a little bit of extra juice. It's just enough to be audible, but not enough to be too aggressive. And then chorus to add a little bit of detune to it. Let me show you the settings here. Nothing crazy yet again, barely touching it. And then a little bit of kiss compression here, just a little bit. Nothing exciting. At the beginning of the cinematic here, we had this little twitch of the wing. Now, in the actual cinematic itself, I don't know if there was a sound for it or if it was just too quiet and wasn't audible. So what I ended up doing was kind of going around the way that they did a majority of the Bug's Life sounds, which was just paper being flapped around. So I ended up ripping out a piece of paper from a journal and then just flicking it with my finger. And I got a couple different feelings, and then I dragged 2 of them in, and these were the 2 that I felt fit what the Zergling was doing, as you watch right here. Right? Nothing on these. There's no distortion, just EQ. And it just gave the Zergling a little bit extra life. If we take them away, it just feels weird. All right, so now for the growls, or the roars. I started off with the Doberman and a Walrus combined together. Let's just hear the, or did I say Doberman? I keep saying that. Rottweiler. This one I only tuned down -9. It's just a nasty growl off of him. And I did some panning just to emphasize which way he's lurking. Transpose -9. That sounds good enough as is, honestly, to tell you the truth. But we could do better. I wanted to try something here. I wanted to use a pitch shifter and go up an octave, but just put it in there a little bit and kind of mess with the delays. And it gave some more characteristics to it. It doesn't sound like it, doesn't sound so deep. It sounds actually like what I would think a Zergling sounds like. And then adding just some EQ here. This sound I had to put back quite a bit of low end. Because that is what I really wanted. And it sounded great with that type of low end. That might be too much though. Someone with subwoofers can tell me if I went a little too crazy there. And then a ring shifter to make them slimy. And now we get into layering. So let's talk about the Walrus. That's the sample. Let's go down -14 here. Right, there's the characteristic. That doesn't sound real. That couldn't be an animal by itself, but it definitely can be with a little bit of EQ. Right. These are the same settings as before, and then this is, like I said, just touch compression. And then you blend the 2 sounds together, kind of see how I mess with the timing. I wanted this to be kind of the end of it, the end of the growl. In theory, this could have been it by itself. That works. It's slimy, it's disgusting, but I kind of wanted to just give it a little extra. My favorite part of the whole cinematic is actually right here. This is where the part where the Zergling says, all right, I'm a dip. I made the scary noise. I'm gone. Right? Because this fight is between Kerrigan and Zeratul. This Zergling could have helped at any time and chose not to. I ended up making this Zergling with 3 parts. The Walrus from the beginning, and then I have 2 Rottweilers here, vicious Rottweilers, and let's listen to how this sounds by itself. So we've already heard the Walrus part, right? Nothing changed on the Walrus at all, except for I went down a little bit, right? This is 14, this is 13. Actually, I went up, right? That's right, because he's not so close anymore. And I want this to be more of a scream, so that's not going to take precedence. I think that's the right word. But we have these 2 here. These are the exact same scream, they're just tuned differently. So let me go ahead and show you what this one sounds like first, before I turn that on and destroy you guys. Sounds terrifying, honestly. So what I ended up doing was I went up 5 here, which gave it such an interesting sound by itself. And then we used the pitch shifter here with the same settings, just a little bit of extra. And that gave it more of the scream part to it. That was more of the scream part, but it needed more beef, so that's where the Walrus came in. But I felt like I could do better, so we ended up duplicating that layer again. We went down 9, and that felt perfect with these 2. They just blended so well together, and then you have the Walrus that gives the low end. Zerglings. Make them out of Rottweilers and walruses.